Okay, everyone, we're kicking off round 4 here of our Zero in on Neutrality webinar series. We're going to give everybody about 30 seconds to shuffle in, and we'll kick things off right after. So bear with me. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Feel free to introduce yourself in chat and what you do. We'll definitely respond. If you have any questions come up, you can type it out in chat, but we do prefer the questions little column here you might see on your right side. It's easier to keep track of, and we can respond to you. But yes, let's keep it an active chat and shoot for any questions that you might have. Okay, let's kick things off. So hi everyone. My name is Akhil, and I'm the co-founder of Green Story. And again, welcome to our webinar series on zeroing in on neutrality. The object of this series is to showcase carbon offsetting from all angles and sharing each stakeholder's perspective. And with that being said, we are incredibly pleased and honored to host this great panel today. Joining us are 4 eco-fashion brands who have chosen to zero in on neutrality. If you have any questions, as I said, please type them out in the question or chat box and we'll get to them. You can also reach out online on our social media channels. You can just tag us at Green Story Inc. Before we get to the panel, I'm going to have a quick introduction about Green Story. We started the company with the vision of enabling every consumer on the planet to ask, what's my impact, before they make a purchase. As a company, we work with over 90 brands, ranging from startups to global giants, to measure the impact of their supply chains and visualize it for our customers. And I'm very happy to announce that we've launched our newest product, a carbon offsetting system that not only makes your products carbon neutral, but really involves and integrates the consumer into the process so they can actually look behind the scenes and see the transparency behind what you do. And without any further ado, I would like to thank this amazing panel joining us today. And our moderator is Marcy. Marcy has over 2 decades of experience in the eco-fashion industry. She is the founder of Eco Fashion Corp, a greenhouse of brands, the author of Eco Renaissance, co-creating a stylish, sexy, and sustainable world, as well as an all-round eco-fashion advocate and pioneer. From being a key figure in the development of the GOTS, which is a global organic textile standard, to being recognized in Amazon's 20 women who are transforming the world, to say the least. Marcy is an eco-fashion expert, and to those in the space, certainly didn't need such a long introduction. But having said that, Marcy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Akhil, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It looks like we have a lot of time zones represented here, not only on the panel, but I'm sure across all of our attendees. So as Akhil said, please let us know who you are and where you are in the chat room. And please, along the way, if you have any questions for any of the panelists today, please enter them in the chat room, and we're going to take the last 10 or 15 minutes of today's session to answer your specific questions. So, and one last thing, as we do introductions, if everybody would share their social media handles, so that for all the attendees, if you want to Twitter or follow any of these people or our brands, that would be wonderful as well. So please engage and let us know what you're thinking along the way. So again, thank you to Green Story and to all of our virtual panelists that represent a wide array of textile categories, from bags and promotional items to children's wear to men's wear to even home textiles. So we're going to kick off today with some introductions. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, a little bit about their brand and their work, and then we'll go deeper as we move into the panel. So let's start. We're going to first name alphabetical order with Adam. So Adam, welcome.
Hey guys, morning, evening, afternoon. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to kind of get this panel going and chat with some great minds and talk about, really important issues that are affecting everyone that makes any kind of product. I am the director of integrated marketing at a men's underwear brand called Beneath. We make absolutely revolutionary men's underwear from a technology perspective, but we also do that with a really sustainable red line all the way through it all. So starting with our main fabric partners like Tencel Modal, sustainably produced, absolutely incredible. We keep pushing our boundaries where we can from sustainability perspective, and most recently have launched the new Green Story carbon neutrality product on our site. So we're super excited for that as well. And one day to have that across the board as a global business. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you, Adam, from Vancouver, Canada. And our next speaker, all the way from Mumbai, India, Barka Das.
Thanks, Marcy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Barka, and I'm the co-founder of Greendigo. We are a GOTS certified organic cotton brand for children's apparel based in India. We make thoughtfully designed clothes for children, keeping their safety and comfort in mind. With sustainability as the bedrock of our brand, we are very conscious of all our processes, right from raw materials used to the final packaging. We'll discuss more of that as we go along. Look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. And our third speaker panelist, Briona Mukwon from Enact. And please share what you're working on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. We're based here in Jacksonville, Florida. Like Marcy said, my name is Briona. I started in the textile industry working in supply chain and sourcing, and then moved into sustainability, working at Under Armour, and then Prana, which is a subsidiary of Columbia Sportswear. And it inspired me to start my company, Enact, which is short for an act of kindness, an act of goodwill. We want to inspire people to take simple acts. So we define ourselves as an activist brand. And the activism we're doing in developing our hemp and organic cotton towel is fighting the social and environmental injustices that exist within the textile industry, which are something I've experienced firsthand and are very near and dear to my heart to make a difference while I'm on this planet. And we were funded on Kickstarter last year. We're an online direct-to-customer brand, but we do some wholesale, and partnered with Green Story 2 years ago before developing the product to make sure that it met all of the sustainability requirements before we went forward. And we've just really enjoyed the journey ever since, and are really excited to be here.
Thank you, Briona. Great to see you. And last but certainly not least is Vic Giri from Gallant International. So Vic, you're on.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Green Story, for this opportunity. My name is Vic Giri. I'm the founder of Gallant International, Inc. We are B Corp certified. Our company was established in 2009 in Southern California. We specialize in private label of 100% organic and fair trade cotton products, such as tote bags, cosmetic bags, and drawstring bags for packaging. We also have our brand called Terra Thread, and we make beautiful backpacks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then just to add on, I know Akhil did a brief intro, just as I'm founder and CEO of Eco Fashion Corp, we have 4 brands. We have a B2B sustainable fashion manufacturing brand called MetaWare, where we do private label manufacturing, and we embed sustainability as a plug and play, making it easy from farm all the way to finished product to shelf. We also have 3 of our own house brands. Join yesand.com, which is at yesand, and that's our direct-to-consumer organic and sustainable apparel brand. We also, which of course includes this t-shirt, Vote Ecologically, which is a very important message now more than ever before. And then we have 2 brands on QVC, one called Farm to Home, and one launching in January called Seed to Style. So eco fashion and sustainable fashion has been my life work for almost 3 decades. And so it's very exciting to see this next frontier really emerging as probably the hottest topic that is out there today in fashion and on everybody's radar. So I think what we're going to do in the spirit of kicking off our panel, which is again titled Carbon Offsetting, the Next Step in Your Sustainable Journey. I'm going to set the stage a little bit, and give you a little bit of background about carbon neutrality. And essentially, the combination of reducing emissions and paying for what's left in terms of your footprint and your impact to get neutrality is kind of part of this model. So carbon neutrality or carbon emissions are traditionally calculated based on 3 different scopes. So scope 1 emissions are all the direct emissions under an organization's control, for instance, the direct operations of a business. Scope 2 emissions are all of the indirect emissions under an organization's control, such as the type of fuel, whether using renewables during the operations of a business. And then scope 3 emissions are all of the other indirect emissions along a company's value chain. So scope 3 emissions are usually the largest emissions of the company. So today we're going to hear about what are each of these brands and companies doing to address their carbon footprint, as well as how to offset their own emissions across the board, across all the scopes. So we're going to kick off with our first question. And these are all brands that are using the Green Story widget already or working with Green Story. So I'd love if each of you could share how you got to where you are right now, why you partnered with Green Story, and a little bit of the evolution of the impact and that you've made by starting this journey. So Barka, why don't you kick off?
Sure. So thanks, Marcy. So, Greendego is a new brand, just over a year old. And we wanted to start off with clean and sustainable practices right from the word go. We believe that it's important to have good processes in place right from the beginning, because damage caused by a brand over a significant period of time can't be changed overnight. To ensure that our supply chain was tuned for reducing the carbon emissions in the first place, we chose to work with a sustainable fiber like organic cotton, and we carry out a production locally within India, and we take pride in offering good quality garments which are long lasting. By having a GOTS certified supply chain and even 100% plastic free packaging, we attempt to work with a cleaner and greener approach to production and servicing customers. However, in India, the awareness for organic cotton and sustainable apparel is still fairly low. It became all the more important for us to educate consumers of the positive impact that their sustainable purchase has vis-a-vis a conventional one. And that's where Green Story stepped in. With their impact tool on our website, consumers become aware of how a product's supply chain can impact our planet's resources. This helps them make a more informed purchase decision and actually triggers a conversation on the impact each one of us has when we consume products. So it was only natural for us to adopt their carbon offsetting tool as well, because while we have consciously built our supply chain to reduce carbon emissions wherever possible, the unavoidable emissions still need to be addressed by way of offsets. And I must say that Green Story, through all its tools, has beautifully demonstrated the collective power of responsible brands. Being a small business owner, it would have been almost impossible to measure impact on our own. And Green Story definitely helps lower the entry barriers for brands who want to measure their impact and make a difference.
Great, thank you so much, Barka. And I think you posed a very important point, which is, there is this perception that moving towards sustainability for a lot of small and medium-sized brands is unattainable. But there are, through the power of collaboration, which has always been a part of my personal mission, collaboration, innovation, inspiration, education, and together we can redesign the industry. So I think, seeking out partners like Green Story is an incredible opportunity and tool for the small, medium brands, of course, as well as the large brands. So thank you. And Adam, please share your path to Green Story.
Thanks. Yeah, Barka, amazing story in the first place, and echo a lot of those sentiments. Started working with Green Story's impact tool a few years ago, probably 2 years ago now. And really for us as a brand, we live under this headline for sustainability in general that we're not perfect, but we're trying. And I think taking that really honest and transparent approach from any brand's perspective is where you need to be. Especially these days, we worry about everyone gets so chastised so often in terms of you're not doing all of the right things. So we try to chip off, as much as we can do at a time. And Green Story's impact tool is really impactful, lack of a better word. But it right away gives the customer a real visual to understand their true impact of buying a single product. And we utilize it across 90% of our products at the moment and hope to do it across all 100%. And it's just a great way to interact with the customer. And it also provides like a really simple baseline for us to build upon in general. So it's a great foundation on that side. And we're looking to continually evolve that even further. And then beyond, the impact tool, the carbon offsetting tool, as soon as that came out, I was like, yes, sign us up. This is absolutely incredible. This is what we've been looking for. Because there's other tools out there that, just make it so much more difficult, like what Barker was alluding to. So for us, a couple clicks working with Green Story already embedded has really, really reduced that barrier to entry for us. And then now that we've got a real social proof aspect, that we can actually offset those extraneous pieces of our supply chain and whatnot through good causes, it's just a win-win situation. So, we're going to keep leaning into this harder and harder and harder, but it's a responsibility of any brand that produces any good. So, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And as you alluded, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And sometimes those steps can be quite daunting, but it sounds like this has been a user-friendly way for you to step forward and to reach your ultimate goal here. So thank you. And Briona, I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey with Green Story. Oh, wait, you're muted. I mean, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thanks.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I met Akil several years ago when I was working at Briona, and I was so impressed with what he was providing, because what I've experienced in the past is that so many sustainability initiatives people associate are qualitative and not quantitative. And so you find a lot of difficulty in presenting metrics that a CFO or somebody who's making that business decision will sign off on, because they want to know what the KPIs are. And that's why I really love Green Story, is that, and especially for us being a smaller brand, is we have access now to show that tangible quantitative impact that we're making, and our customers love it. We use the score on our packaging sleeve. And it's like hands down, when we ask people, they're like, knowing the impact like immediately out of the gate is something that just gives me confidence in the work that you're doing, in addition to the product as well. And I think what I've also experienced is that there's so many things when it comes to sustainability A to Z that you can do, but there's a lot of things you can't control. And supply chain, with us not owning supply chain in the US and having it here, we can't control what happens for the most part. So being able to, I love what Akil's doing with the carbon offsetting, because we can't, at this point have local for local manufacturing for everyone, but we can take that first step in offsetting to measure or to fight climate change for the impact the textile industry is taking. So those are the types of things that I think are incredibly valuable that Green Story brings. And then for us being a smaller brand, it helps with our financial goals and our non-financial goals. So that's been my experience thus far.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And Vic, please join the party.
Thank you, Marcy. As you know, we make products made of 100% organic cotton. And just to give a little stats, I'm sure all of you know, and many of our audience know, organic water uses 88% less water, 62% less energy, don't use any fertilizers or harmful chemicals. And most of all, the organic cotton we source is grown in a rain-fed region in India, right? In addition to that, our entire post-harvesting is done as per God's standard, which Barkha mentioned, and that God addresses 17 or all of the United Nations Sustainable Goals. So it meets all the goals, right? Then, according to Green Story LCA report, our carbon emission is only 4% in fiber level, only 4%. And compare that to polyester 125%, nylon 250%, according to the various reports in the market, right? So now we are already doing this. Then since 2019, we've been doing carbon neutral shipment, right? It's a process, it's a learning process. So now then Green Story came in and talked to Akhil, and he was working with a lot of brands I personally know. And they made this very easy. I can talk all about the stats, but this is very broad, right? When it comes to like individual product, the customer need to know what's their impact, how much impact they are making, or what's the impact we are making, right? So they made it very easy. We can say, okay, you are buying this pouch or you are buying this bag. So this much water is saving, this much energy is saving. So this is very clear for our clients to understand. Now, our business being B2B, this is very good thing that I like about it. It says, suppose somebody comes and order 100,000 bags from us. We can make a report for them saying that what impact they made by going with brand like you, Marcy, and us, who specialize in 100% organic and fair trade products. So that's what made it easy. That's why we joined. Now, on our Gallant website, we don't have that impact. We'll be giving this report to our clients, mainly major clients. There are a lot of smaller clients we work with, like, they buy 250, 300 pieces. And if they need, we'll provide them that as well. But on our TerraThread brand, it shows everything clear, carbon neutral, all the impacts we make. So I think it's very easy for customers to understand and easy for marketing. That's why we chose, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vic. And I think both you and Briona touched on a couple things that I just want to reiterate. One being how complicated a supply chain is, especially when it's overseas. And, what people don't realize is a garment can change hands in the supply chain from farm to finished product 7 to 10 times. All the different touch points, from the cotton to or hemp or whatever the fiber is, to ginning and spinning and knitting and weaving, to cutting and sewing, dyeing, printing. And so I think what is so valuable about these streamlined processes in partnership with a company like Green Story is to be able to assess across the board to all the way to the finished product level, which ultimately, whether you're talking about the GOTS standard or you're talking about any kind of finished product, we have to be looking at impacts across the board. And the other topic you touched on, Vic, being organic, just to reiterate for all of those of you who are watching this webinar, it does start at the fiber level, whether you're using hemp or you're using organic cotton. The fiber that you choose makes a huge difference in terms of the carbon impact of your finished product. Ultimately, what people don't realize is that soil is actually one of our greatest solutions to climate change mitigation, because when you have very biodiverse, fertile, and healthy soil serves as a sponge, like the skin of the earth, where it will absorb carbon out of the atmosphere. So that's why there's a lot of talk today around regenerative and organic cotton farming. And of course, hemp, has been a great new addition, old but new, being that I've been in this industry over 25 years. It's really exciting to see hemp come full circle as such a sustainable fiber crop. And so, to look at now, we're just scratching the surface on some of the reasons this is so important, to actually look at how can we all be a part of the solution versus the problem when it comes to carbon and our climate impact. in the fashion industry. So why is this so important? I'm just going to share a couple of, advances or efforts that are behind the scenes that really do involve all of us in collaboration as a global industry. So global emissions would need to reach net zero by 2050 to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, as outlined in the Paris Agreement, according to the 2018 report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The industry that we're all a part of is moving in this direction, and I'll just share that the Textile Exchange has made a commitment and will be the driving force for urgent climate action, with a goal of a 35 to 45% reduction in CO2 emissions from textile fiber and material production by 2030. For those of you who may not be registered, next week is the Textile Exchange Conference, so check it out. And if you're not registered, please join the conference. Be very informative, very enlightening, with a lot of great support and toolkits to help you get to this ultimate goal that the industry is sharing in. The 2030 strategy will be announced at the conference next week. And Amazon, for those of you who didn't see, recently announced a $2 billion climate fund and strong measures to ensure Amazon's operations will be fully carbon neutral by 2040. So this is, again, collective action that's going to be needed, and all of us joining forces, because I think across the board, this is something we can't turn our backs on. Time is of the essence, famous last words. So, okay, so I guess the next question for all of you is, why did you specifically choose to go carbon neutral as an add-on to the other efforts that you're all making and spoke to in the last question? So Adam, why don't you kick off this one?
Yeah, moving carbon neutral is, the logical next step. It's to really clean up or tie up all the loose ends that really are involved in everything that's producing a good and getting it to the end customer, which is, at the end of the day, shipping is one of the biggest and most impact, like especially for someone who produces products overseas and all these different things. Getting it to the final consumer is always the last piece of the pie that, we've been looking for solutions on how to do so. So it's a really logical step, but it was always one that I was really careful to step into. And the reason being is that it's too often given a really bad name, almost like a license to pollute, which is probably going to come up several times through this conversation. And there hasn't been many elegant solutions that are easy to get in for a brand, to very, very easily make sure that we can actually see those impacts and make sure that the offset investment goes to the right places, not simply buying up other carbon credits. So for us, it was really something looking for the right solution to impact our supply chain and really tie it all together at the end of the day. And that added just another layer of visibility and transparency to our customer, to give them more information so they can make a more informed decision on purchasing.
Great. And as you spoke to earlier, you're working with Tencel, correct? Which, for those of you who don't know, Tencel Lensing made a very exciting announcement that Tencel is now net carbon zero. So when you look at starting points at the fiber level, whether it's certified organic cotton, regenerative cotton, we have a project at MetaWare called Reset, which stands for Regenerate the Environment, Society, and Economy through Textiles, starting with that farm gate. So again, the fibers you choose are an very important component in achieving net carbon zero strategies. So Briona, on that note, I would love to hear more about why hemp, in terms of, as you kicked off Enact, that's obviously been the fiber that you've hung your hat on, and would love to learn more about not only why hemp, but how does hemp relate in this world of carbon neutrality?
Yeah. For me, I didn't come from textiles. My background was international business with human rights. And so when I started working in the industry, I was like, whoa, I had no idea that this is like what our clothes were made of. I had no idea this is all the places it traveled. And being able to travel the world and go to the farms and go to the factories and working in Central America, and seeing the process, I was like, we have to there has to be a better way to move from this linear process to a circular where we design with end of life in mind. And so it made me move toward these natural plant-based fibers and ask, what are the best fibers that are performing the way we want to in our textiles. And then when I found out about hemp, I was working over in China and happened to be there during the hemp harvest. And I just ended up going down this rabbit hole. So I found out about all of its performance features, resisting the growth of bacteria, et cetera. But then also that and all plants, right, pull carbon, but just like how much hemp could revitalize our soil, to your point, on the value of having healthy soils and what that will do for our food and fashion. And so I think why I was really attracted to hemp is that we're reintroducing it back into society. So we've had it around for thousands of years. And I think that's what's so exciting is the supply chain is so limited. So a lot of the things that we come up against in the textile industry of explaining to people where their clothes come from and all of the processing are completely foreign to hemp at this point. So like the sky's the limit in terms of how we talk about it and what we can do from a textile perspective in reinventing supply chain, but then also in its environmental benefits along the way. So that was what enamored me into why hemp. And I also was just really grossed out by my bath towels picking up this mildewy smell. And I was like, I need a better fiber. And I didn't see anyone doing it on the market. So those were like my personal incentives, but then also for the industry, an incentive that made sense.
Awesome, thanks. And Vic, you're doing so much great work around organic, and when did you start leading into enhancing your story through carbon neutrality? And tell us a little bit about why you chose to go carbon neutral specifically with Gallant. Anything you want to add to what's already been shared?
Sure. So, that as I said before, according to LCA report, only 4% CO2 is emitted through, organic cotton as compared to 125 and 250 polyester and nylon, right? So that means there is very little carbon emission created in the fiber level. But the rest of it is going into manufacturing and transporting. And we've been looking this is for a while. And as I said, since 2019, we started doing carbon neutral. But that is only about 15% of what it goes. Then the rest is in manufacturing. So we wanted to come up with a solution now. We cannot, ask our factory to go solar and wind overnight. There is a lot of things that's already infrastructure built, right? And it's very difficult to switch overnight or thing. But our partner factory now has already started complete solar run factory, and we'll be making about 25 to 30% of our product in green factory this year, and by next year we'll be doing 80%. So, but whatever we are creating, and we wanted to, the mess we created or the injury we incurred, we wanted to fix that in some way. Some people can call Band-Aid or whatever, but there are a lot of benefits that I was looking before going into this one. Right? Fine, these are unavoidable. This is not only us. Our biggest companies and the most environmental friendly companies are creating this as well, because this is totally unavoidable. But we wanted to contribute some. So that's why we chose this kind of projects like, reforestation, afforestation, and, going solar. So these are helping carbon sequestration, and also they are creating jobs and other great things the benefits have in society for environment and economically. So that's why we chose that we must do this, and we decided to go this route, and we are going to do as much as we can.
Awesome. So Bark, I know you work also with organic cotton. What are you seeing in India in terms of receptivity around carbon offsetting and the conversation now that is starting to pick up, huge steam here, obviously. What are you seeing over there?
Sure. So, Marcy, in India, just talking about organic cotton first, consumers often perceive that, organic clothing is meant for the privileged only. And, Greendego was founded with with the objective of kind of changing this perception, because, we want to make organic the new normal, and we feel that it should be, affordable and accessible to all, and not just, to the rich and the elite. So with that backdrop, we started, with Greendego, and, children being the more vulnerable segment as far as, the health hazards of synthetic or blended textiles go. So carbon neutrality was, a natural step for us, since our vision and mission is strongly tied to clean manufacturing and, responsible consumption as well. So, undertaking small steps along the way, such as, picking up dead stock fabric for production, or undertaking small batch manufacturing to avoid the problem of excess inventory, are, some of the things that we've been doing from the start. And along the way, constantly innovating and improvising to reduce impact. So, we kind of introduce 100% plastic-free packaging, and, we regularly donate our production samples to underprivileged children instead of simply trashing them. So, having said so, apart from all these initiatives, we also increase awareness amongst our customers by trying to drive home the point about reducing consumption and repurposing old garments at every touch point, including our hang tags. So I would say we pay equal attention to not only our own processes and production, but also we pay a lot of emphasis on educating the customer on being very mindful, and this is very inherent in the way we work.
Great, thank you. And then since you touched on consumers, I think this is a good segue into kind of the next topic, which I want to kind of combine a couple of the next questions. One being, how is your consumer responding to the efforts that you've already kicked off? And then how do you choose the projects that you're using to offset? What are you looking for, and how are you then ultimately translating those decisions to ultimately to the consumer? There are so many great projects out there to look at, for offsetting. So maybe Briona, do you want to kick off here with what your consumers, how they're responding, as well as what projects you're using for offsets?
Sure. I think what for us, so we just started piloting, so we haven't really had that data to do that analysis yet. But what we have done in our communication out to our customers is try to put ourselves in their shoes. And I think all of us this year have gone through quite a bit. We've seen a huge shift in our global community. And, specifically here in the US, out west, my family and friends have been impacted by the fires in California. And so I think that we try to meet people where they're at and to understand what our customers thinking and what they're going through. So I think a lot of people were feeling very apocalyptic and, okay, like we're going through this pandemic and now we're going through addressing the racial inequality in our country. And now I can't breathe because there's a fire outside. And I think a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed. And so ways that we can we worked with Akil to offer a project specifically here in the US that we could then connect the dots, so that instead of people thinking, why me? And, why is all of this happening? We can instead empower them to say, no, you have an option. Like there are things and initiatives and projects going on that will be able to address why climate change is happening. And you can have a say in that, and you can vote with your dollar and showing that. And so that's where we've tried to connect and communicate with our specific customers. And that's been really successful. And we've had a lot of people reach out and say, thank you. Like this feels good to know that I don't have to just take what's being given to me and that I'm getting options to make a change. And then, yeah, and I think also for the holidays, we're really excited about offering that as well, because I think that is, again, something else that people are thinking is not, I just want to shop to give something because it's required at Christmas, but really thinking mindfully on the impact of those gifts and what they're seeing around them and how those purchases can make a difference. So that's been our experience to date.
Awesome. Great. And just a quick stat, 2/3, 67% of consumers support the idea of a recognizable carbon label to demonstrate the products have been made with a commitment to measuring and reducing their carbon footprint. And that's from the Carbon Trust. So I think in that spirit, you know, consumers are ready to engage. They want to hear about these stories from source to story. And so maybe Vic, if you want to go next, what are you doing to tell these stories to the consumer? How are you empowering your consumers around your carbon story?
You know, Marcy, our business, we've been focusing mainly promoting organic cotton and fair trade practices. We have not really marketed in a big way about carbon neutral. We even, like, it's on our website, but you know, we don't, once we ship the products and we said, by the way, your products are, you know, carbon neutral shipped, right? So they really appreciate it. And so now we're going to do more brand marketing and creating more awareness and letting the initiatives we are taking for carbon neutral to our clients. Now, as far as our retail brand goes, that you know, we don't have the data yet. So we have a carbon neutral icon there. People can see that. They can see that the projects that we are supporting and the impact it's making, but we don't have the data yet. But you know, like as far as choosing the project, we decided to do it in India because our cotton is grown in India. Our entire manufacturing is done in India, and we chose the area that is close to the farmers' land where we grow our organic cotton. And those are poor farmers. They have like very small land. Those are degraded lands. They are wastelands, you know, prone to, like, you know, erosions, and they don't have enough fund, knowledge, resources, or support to do any kind of reforestation or afforestation. So we decided to go in the area where our cotton is grown, where the impact is, you know, directly goes to the farmers. And that area is, you know, like there was, as you know, there was a big flood in Hyderabad, and you know, and there is big flood that's affecting like a cotton this year. I think the harvesting will be low. So we are mainly focusing where we do our manufacturing and where we grow our cotton. And currently we are also doing some in the US, like a Garcia River and other forest projects, but that is separate. For now, we are focusing in India.
And are you choosing specific projects for your offsetting, or are you honing in on anything specific? And if so, what?
Yes, we are doing two things, like as I said. One is reforestation and afforestation. For number one reason, because there is wasteland, right? There is a degraded land, and that has been lying barren for decades. It's not being used. So doing reforestation or afforestation will help generate income, like, you know, so there will be like, let's see, transportation, raising nurseries, you know, transportation of those plants, maintenance of those plants, right? And then later on selling those, you know, trees to the timber companies. And also we are looking into doing, using the leaves to make disposable plates. So instead of cutting the trees, they can use leaves to make disposable plates and bowls. So that can be used, you know, by many, like restaurants and party houses and other things. So that's why we were choosing, you know, that area. Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah, no, and actually what in connecting the dots between what projects you're choosing for offsets, maybe Barka, if you want to elaborate on how you're communicating those specific projects. And as Vic said, there's a great story in and of itself within, what the projects that you're choosing in addition to going carbon net zero. So maybe share if there are specific projects that you're eyeing and how you're communicating those stories to your customer.
Sure. So, just echoing what Vic said, because, he works with organic cotton too. So the projects that, we've selected also align with our supply chain and have a fair share of reforestation, which, Vic very nicely explained how it sequestrates carbon. We have a renewable energy, a solar energy project, which avoids obviously the future emissions, and a biogas project which has a very strong community impact. And we believe in not looking at these offset projects just as a checkbox to neutralize carbon emissions, but the fact that they need to have a very strong social component as well, and those which are aligned with the SDGs that the brand is committed to. So I think that is a very important point for considering the projects that a brand chooses to go with. We also prefer projects which are in the same geographical region as our production. And last but not the least, it's very important for the projects to have credibility and be verified by recognized agencies such as the Gold Standard or CDM.
Great. Maybe just for the sake of those who are watching, who are not familiar with the Gold Standard, maybe speak to, give a little, enlighten people about what you're talking about there.
Sure. So these are basically, let's just put it like this, that, carbon offsetting can actually, what it actually does is not reduce the emissions produced today, but it kind of just balances them out. So it can be an easy way for brands to gain sustainability credits without actually trying to reduce emissions. And, this can, when it's viewed critically, this can actually be labeled as greenwashing. And this is exactly what, these recognized global agencies or auditors help achieve. They add that badge of the project actually doing some good on ground and not just on paper. So it's very important to be very sure of the projects that one is partnering with, and so that there is a regular audit and they are verified that they are actually bringing about some good, not only to the environment but also to the local communities. Yeah. So does that help, Marcy?
Yes, I'm glad you shared that, because I think what's important for viewers to recognize is across the board in the fashion industry, fashion and home industry, we have to be keep our eyes wide open around greenwashing efforts that are trying to jump on the sustainability bandwagon, drinking the kind of proverbial organic or regenerative Kool-Aid, but then ultimately not necessarily having that verification, the credibility, or the auditing that's necessary for us to have that assurance of authenticity and full transparency along the way, which are fundamental to the success of the sustainable fashion and home movement. And so maybe Adam, if you can speak to, some of the efforts, what are you, leaning towards in terms of offsetting projects and why, and then how are you at your brand communicating to the consumer, and what are you seeing in the way of consumer response to the claims that you've started to make?
Totally. And to echo, much of what everyone else has said, our carbon offsetting side of things is really quite new to us. We've only been up and running for 2 days in terms of the actual on-site implementation and whatnot, but it's been something that we've been thinking of for a very long time. Most notably, thinking about the evolution of what the customer is going to receive and see and be used to. There's been a lot of discussion lately of, on packaging and looking at carbon impacts in the same way you look at calories on a food label, so that the customer is going to be more up to speed with what carbon impacts truly mean. And it won't just be this fluffy word of, oh, carbon, carbon, carbon. So for us, it's really taking that like very, very transparent approach. And most importantly, because we make a first to skin product, which means that 90% of our products or more are single use. So for us, it's starting at the very beginning and making sure that, you know, you alluded to it earlier, Marcy, around fabric selections and fibers, that's one thing, but your entire supply chain is crucial to this. So, you know, we've really lately been leaning into why we produce things the way we do. We work with incredible factories. Our factories trying to do everything they can, leading the charge in China. So that kind of led us to put most of our efforts into renewable hydro projects for power in China. So it can work back into our power grid for our factories and then offsetting that side of things. So just like everyone else, really tying our supply chain in as far as we can through some of these projects. And from that perspective, we're going to start to actually communicate that even more to add another layer to the quality of a product. So, you know, to extend the life of a single product is the most sustainable thing that we can do if you're producing something from start to finish. So the better we can do that and have it as least amount of impact is all we can really kind of lean on as a communication. And our customers tell us this all the time. They love seeing that we are actually putting this out there and giving them that choice. It just becomes another value prop for the product, on top of it being incredibly comfortable and all that. So yeah, logical connections and evolutions here.
And I think one thing that's really wonderful that you all have touched on is the fact that sharing core values with your factories and selecting, being very discerning on who you're manufacturing with, so that you're reinforcing each other and you're building win-win-win business models. The win of the factory is innovation, staying ahead of the curve, staying relevant, and of course, you know, growing their business at a time that, you know, brands are demanding this. Why? Because consumers want to see that brands are being more accountable, that they're taking action. The power of business to change the world, I think we've all seen and probably would agree, is potentially way stronger than relying on our governments to affect change, right? So I think, you know, this opportunity that we all have to lean on and support our factories while they're making progress in exchange for giving, you know, sharing that progress with us and our brands to take back to empower consumers. Again, win-win-win. So on that note, we have about 8 minutes left. So I want to open the floor to questions. So please, anybody watching, if you have specific questions and you have a specific panelist that you'd like to address that question to, let us know as well. So it looks like first question that's come in. Okay, talking here about the customer response to sustainable products. Many studies state that sustainability is a purchase driver for customers, but with often higher prices for sustainable products. This is the big price question that always comes up. In reality, when it comes to checking out, customers will rather go for the cheapest option. Not necessarily, right? Their customers are starting to change around this, but is this something that you've experienced, each one of you as a brand, or not? So that's a question from Orlan. So please, who would like to jump on that one first?
I'd be happy to.
Right.
Just quickly, we've done a few things over the years where we've offered a value incentive at checkout for, you know, contributing to a project. You know, many organizations that we support that kind of tie into the brand values are Protect Our Winters and Surfrider Foundation, which really are about climate initiatives. And you know, certain times in the year, we put that in the cart and we give the customer a choice to really kind of select the cause they would like us to donate to on their behalf and things like that. And immediately we see direct impact there, let alone, you know, now adding carbon offsetting and all those other things there. So ultimately it does put the power in front of the customer and totally increases sell-through in some regards and how you do that.
So would you say that the cost, it just kind of becomes more the issue becomes more marginal, if at all, based on the demand and the customer feeling that sense of it's an added value?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, giving them that choice and showing that you're actually investing in something else other than just trying to make money. it's everyone starts a business to make money, but ultimately, if you can invest in the future of the planet and enjoy it, and translate that to the customer, and you're kind of winning on both sides.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that for Orland that, I think a lot of us in sustainable products on the textile side are building our supply chains in more unique ways than historically, where, a brand or a retailer would go directly to a factory who would then be charged with building out the whole supply chain. I think many of us are actually starting at that fiber level and building up the supply chain to make our supply chains more efficient, more vertically integrated, and ultimately, by doing so, being cost competitive with conventional products along the way, while at the same time embedding social and environmental accountability and carbon offsetting and storytelling by being more efficient in our supply chain. So that is something that I think we're seeing more and more of, where it's not why organic, sustainable, and carbon net zero, it's why not. If we can give that consumer, or on the B2B side, other brands and retailers, the opportunity to have that added value, then you have, so much more, and you're not seeing sacrifice, deprivation, higher costs, or compromise on design or quality, crunchy, frumpy, boxy, beige, and boring, right? So you can get everything you want and so much more when you're thinking about these kinds of practices from the beginning as we're building our products in the entire design cycle all the way to the finished product. We have another question from Peter. Do you find product durability and longevity at par, less or longer than products without the same sustainability makeup? And since all of you probably are equipped to answer this, who would like to jump in on that? Briona, great.
I can take that. Yeah, so Peter, I think that when we're designing, that it's our responsibility to create a quality product. And that's the challenge for us, is how do we ensure that we're designing for end of life, we're thinking about all of the inputs that are going in and the people and the planet, but we're also ensuring that it's the best product out there on the market. And for us, I know that's like why I've, again, enamored with hemp, is because of its durability. And I think that looking to nature, I'm a huge fan of biomimicry. So how do we look for the problems we want to solve that already exist in nature, and then create that infrastructure to manufacture them, to use them? And I think that we just haven't, I think oil has just really driven the textile industry for a long time. And so us moving away from that and thinking about these performance features and looking to nature and then ensuring that they're the best on the market is really how we look at it.
Awesome. Thank you. And did you want to add something, Barka? Is that?
Yeah, so just to take forward Briana's point, in response to Peter's question, organic cotton is known to be a stronger and more durable fiber. In fact, because it is not chemically processed, it ends up, lasting longer. And it is a known fact that, untreated organic cotton is actually biodegradable. So just wanted to add that.
Great. And if somebody can answer, let's see, we have one more question in 1 minute, because we're getting towards the finish line. So if someone can answer, what do you think the intersection between consumer and brand responsibility for the impact of a product lies? So where, how can consumers get involved and look at sort of the post, once it's in the hands of the consumer, how can we empower them as well to continue this journey? It looks like, Barka, you want to give a quick answer there?
Sure. So I think neither the brand nor the consumers can do this without each other. Both brands and consumers have to be responsible for their own carbon footprint. So while brands need to ensure that the processes are less polluting, right from the raw material stage till the last mile of the product reaching the customers, the customer also needs to be very mindful of, his or her consumption habits. Not only that, how the product is disposed is also very important. So, just to quickly wrap that up, I feel that companies will not produce green products unless there is a demand for it. On the other hand, consumers will not ask for a green product unless it is a practical, affordable, and easily available solution for them. So, yeah, that's
Boom.
it.
Thank you. Great way to end. And I'll just say thank you to all of the panelists. Let's co-create a greener, cleaner planet and industry. And please follow all of these brands and people. Maybe just real quick, I could be followed at Marcy Zaroff, at YesAnd, or at MetaWare Organic, and find us at joinyesand.com. Vic, maybe jump in with how can people learn more about Gallant and your work?
Just gallantintl.com for now.
Great. Barka?
Yeah, so we have greendego.com and Greendego Retail on Instagram and all other social media.
Adam?
bn3th.com, so it's beneath.com, or at Beneath Apparel on all the socials. I'll post it in the chat too.
Thank you. And Briona?
Enact.com, ANACT, and then Enact Global for all of our social media platforms.
Thank you. And thank you again to all of our panelists, and thank you, Green Story, for all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Marcy. And just like as a quick note, we will be sharing all of these details in the email. So follow-up email that's going to go out. So do keep an eye out for that. And thank you for the amazing panel discussion. For the questions that we couldn't get to today, do keep an eye out on social media and our newsletters. We will be sharing some responses on that. And we will be sharing the recording almost immediately with the summary blog. That will be emailed to all of you within a day. So do keep an eye out. And some of the questions that were asked were also around sustainability for the consumers and every day. And, lo and behold, tomorrow we have a panel exactly on that, who will be talking to some influencers, some brands, and a lot of people who work directly with consumers and can dig a little bit deeper on everyday sustainability for people and how to make that choice. So you can balance all your kind of focuses. So thank you, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day or night.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.